My Life in the Eyes of Maslow and Freud. Prenatal and Birth. Caitlin Elise Downey, April 17, 2000. In Maslow's eyes, I was completely dependent of others at this stage. My needs at this age included intellectual, emotional, and social. These needs consisted of turning my head from birth, constantly needing a source of comfort/reassurance, and having the exposure of learning from the family members constantly around me. In Freud's eyes, I was in the oral stage, which consisted of my mouth being my pleasure source. Freud believes this is why I was born with a sucking reflex, and he also believes that my oral needs were not met because I began sucking my thumb at a young age to meet my oral needs. First 2 years. In Maslow's eyes, at this stage in my life, I was learning to work with my fine motor skills more than I was at birth. Each infant has a set of gross motor skills and fine motor skills. With these skills, I went from learning to hold my head up to rolling over to then sitting up. I was also able to grasp things in my hand, and I could even bang and throw things as well. The strength and coordination of grasping things in my hand progressed over the first 2 years. I even began to have a great interest in finger painting and drawings. With my intellectual needs, I began to know the difference between inanimate and animate objects. I also began imitating my surroundings. In the process of the first 2 years, my emotional needs allowed me to be able to differ good and bad, and what I considered fell under those categories. My social needs stayed relative to how they were at birth, but I began to need more interaction from others to play. In Freud's eyes, I was participating in the beginning of the anal stage. In this stage, I was beginning to experiment with urine and feces and learning to set control over my bodily functions. My parents participated in this stage by toilet training me and teaching me to said control. Early childhood. In Maslow's eyes, at this stage, I was going through 4 different kinds of needs, including physical, emotional, social, and intellectual. I was participating in the loss of my baby shape and became more independent. I could run and play, use a fork and knife, draw numbers, and even tie my shoes. At this age, I had questions upon questions, and I loved reading and going to school. I began to learn how to cope with my emotions by playing with other kids. These emotions include jealousy, anger, happiness, love, fear, guilt, and worry. I had temper tantrums until age 5. At my age, I began to extend my social needs. I went on play dates and participated in tons of extracurricular activities. In Freud's eyes, I was in the phallic stage, which according to Freud, this is the stage that I began to experience the pleasure of private areas. For a young girl, it is called the Electra complex, where I felt I was competing with my mother for my father's attention. Middle childhood. In Maslow's eyes, I continued to progress in everything I began in early childhood. I became more active with my physical needs, I became smarter in my intellectual needs, I became stronger with my emotional needs, and how to deal with them properly. I even became more social and outgoing. This part of my life is to strengthen all the basic needs and develop and advance learning of all the needs. In Freud's eyes, I was in the latency stage, which consists of the sexual tendencies subsiding and the development of the superego and conscience. At this age, I began to behave in morally acceptable ways, and in most cases, I adopted the values of my parents. Adolescence. In Maslow's eyes, this is when I hit puberty. I went through many physical changes such as gaining weight, getting taller, growing body hair, body shape changes, developed breasts, and menstrual starts. This is the stage where my thoughts and opinions began to change in accordance with my parents. My intellectual needs chose a new path. At this age, my emotional needs were unpredictable due to the hormones. Emotional needs came with extreme mood swings. My social needs had an extreme change as well. I gained a great amount of independence from my parents. In this stage, I did not experience the social stress from my peers. I was a very introvert adolescent. In Freud's eyes, I was in the genital stage. At this age, this is where my sexual impulses reemerged only in accordance with the other stages working. It is the beginning of my adulthood sexuality. Emerging adulthood. In Maslow's eyes, this is not a distinctive stage, but it conclusively falls in between adolescence and adulthood. In my experience, it was a stage between high school and adulthood where I learned my independence in my own life with the reliance of my parents. In Freud's eyes, this stage is the same as adolescence. I gained a stronger sense of my sexuality as I engaged in relationships throughout high school. Adulthood. As I have just reached my legal adulthood, I don't have much experience to portray, but in Maslow's eyes, this is a stage of life full of four needs, including physical, emotional, intellectual, and social. This is a stage where physical development ceases very early on. This is the stage of life that our health declines, and in this stage of life, I will eventually experience menopause. This is the part of life where you choose your career path and learn new skills. This is the stage of life where you consume more responsibilities and maturity. The social aspect is determined on the housing and career choices you make and who you encounter through the way. In Freud's eyes, this is the level where you sexually choose a partner and have children. I've chosen my partner, and within the next 5 to 10 years, we plan to experience the child part. Late adulthood. This is a part of life I have not entered yet, but through the studying of Freud and Maslow's theories, I can have an understanding and prediction of what I will experience. According to Maslow, this is a stage of life where I will begin to decline. My physical appearance will plummet, such as wrinkles, age spots, gray hair, and yellow teeth. My sleep will be more frequently interrupted. The loss of taste and smell will begin. I will also have a more likely chance of having arthritis. My intellectual speed will decline as well. This is a stage of life with negative emotions such as regret and depression. At this age, friendships tend to be more relevant than family, depending on your living situation. Freud would say I was at the end of the genital stage, in most cases lacking sexual desire as I would have before. The end.